Hello everybody, today I have the pleasure to propose to you this video, this first key entitled Duality, Essential Basis of Existence Leading to Holistic Dimension. Well, let's start with a short definition and short explanation and clarification of these two concepts, duality and holistic dimension. What is duality concretely? Duality basically is a binary approach, like two faces of the same middle. Concretely, it is a vision for which there is two elements in opposition or in a certain complementarity. Well, when I say that this understanding, the understanding of duality is essential because it is the basis of life, of the existence, we have to find and to check the etymology. In Greek, to exist or existence comes from Latin, and it means literally to segment, to fragment. What does it mean? Concretely, before coming here, down to earth, to be incarnated, okay, we are part of the absolute, the source, the union, and so on. Okay, there is many types of terminology. We can also call it great all, included everything. It could be the divine, God, whatever the name. But let's say we come from this absolutes. And we have been obliged to separate from this wall, to make the experience of life. Okay, so this is exactly the metaphor that we can find in the Genesis when Adam is kicked out from the Garden of Eden as a metaphor, Garden of Eden being, in a certain extent, the union, the unity, and he's out of it and also eating the apple of knowledge, for which he has the vision of duality, good, bad, feminine, masculine, you, me, and so on. Not as a whole, okay? If you observe animals, not all of them, but certain of them, they don't necessarily have the notion of personality, okay? So concretely, the reason for being of duality allows you to extract from the absolute. Let's take an example. Concretely, is metaphor, of course. Actually, we could compare life in general with the painting. The painting and the painter would be the great all, okay, the absolute God, whatever the name, okay? So, is the painting and the painter, plus is also, let's say, the landscapes, but also the characters. We are embodying the characters, all right? So, but how you can see yourself if you are part of the painting? When you are an artist and you know how to paint, you know that you need a certain detachment. You need to do a step backwards, 1 meter, 2 meters, to take a certain distance, a detachment to see, okay? If you are like this, you don't see anything. So you really need to detach from the big whole, okay? That's why duality is important. Without it, if you are everything, you don't see the difference. Let's take another example. If you have a yellow filter on your vision, you don't know what is yellow concretely, because for you, everything is yellow, okay? So you cannot know what is something except by putting in relief or in comparison with something else. And actually, this is the whole principle of the reason for being of existence and, let's say, duality. Holistic approach, holistic vision means literally, holistic comes from Greek, holos means global, entire, overall. Okay, so concretely, it is taking a certain height, okay, a certain distance, okay, a detachment regarding a situation and so on. Check this example. You are a couple, okay, so there's two people. You're part of it. So even if you explain your problems and so on, you dispute, you will never be objective, right? And same for your wife or your partner, your husband, whoever, okay? So this is exactly the same principle because you are part of the couple. If you really need a certain advice or an objectivity, you will not ask for a friend because the friend will, let's say, feedback you according to the information you gave, or also it will be linked affectively to you or to your husband or wife, and so on. If you go to see a specialist, for example, a psychanalyst or whoever, he would be more objective. It's the same principle. Because he has a certain distance, he doesn't know you, so he has no affective dimension with you, he's not linked with you, and so on. So this is the big picture. Take two more examples. The first one is the Rubik's Cube. If I show you, this game, if I show you there is 6, because it's a cube, there is 6 faces. And I show you and I ask you, what's the color? You will tell me what is in front of you, red. And I will say, no, it's yellow. And someone else on my side will say it's blue, and so on. And another one is another color. Okay, so concretely, what is the color? There is no color, it's multicolor. Okay, so concretely, everybody is partially right. And is exactly this notion that Rumi, the great Sufi, said, truth was like a broken mirror. It was in the hands of God, and it falls down. It's broken, and each individual take a piece and say, all the truth is inside it. Okay, concretely, we have just a fragment of the reality. Your experience is just a single piece of the cake or of the puzzle game. And this is interesting to appreciate it like this. We need to recompose the different pieces of the puzzle. And this is thanks to other people, other perspective that we can afford it. Actually, it's like if we have to analyze my fingers, okay, here around. The perspective is 360 degrees. And if there is a camera or a drone taking all the angles, it can retranscript partially, but even not what is inside my finger. Everything is necessary subjective, okay? That's why I'm always saying the absolute truth is the sum of the individual subjectivity and subjective truth. The absolute truth is the sum of the subjective realities. Okay, so you have a fragment, he has a fragment, she has a fragment, he has a fragment, and so on. And everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Okay, and this is extremely important to understand it. Concretely, the holistic approach is the same principle that you want to understand the functioning, how does it work for a special electronic device. What do? Okay, so it's working well, that's perfect. You dismantle, okay, this electronic device to understand individually each component, the functionality of each of them independently. And then you will try to understand what's the link between all of them, the total orchestration of this electronic device. And then the objective is to recompose it as it was from the beginning. But you understand the process. The wall exists and is working well. You want to dismantle to, let's say, to fragments, to understand individually each piece in order to recompose this as a whole to understand the unity. This is the principle of holistic approach. Well, actually, if you want another example, is the metaphor of the elephant. Okay, the elephant, it's a legend for which 5 blind people are put in front of an elephant. They don't share information. The first one, concretely, say that he's touching the leg and he say that it is a tree. Another one touch the tail and he say that it is a rope. The third one touch the tusk and he say it's a spear. Another one touch the ear and he say that is a banana leaf. And the last one take the side, you know, the belly, and he say is a wall. And at the end, they try to share and they start to have a certain dispute. But concretely, all of them are wrong, because it's not they are partially right, they are all wrong, because they only analyze through a certain spectrum, a perspective, which is not the reality. But if they share together, maybe they will aspire to be, let's say, closer to the reality. Maybe by sharing, they will brainstorm and they will have a new perspective. Maybe they will think it's a rhinoceros, or it is, let's say, a hippopotamus, or this kind. And then, step by step, maybe they will think about the elephants. And this is another point, very interesting, because this is what we call, in Greek philosophy, dialectic. Dialectic, concretely, what is it? It is the fact to share. This is the confrontation of your ideas with other people. Thanks to that, you can mature your ideas. You can enlarge your perspective. It's like you have a project and you want to make sure that it is solid, it is coherent and so on, and you discuss with someone, okay? Not necessarily too skeptical, but let's say open-minded, and usually is optimistic, but in parallel he is frank and he will tell you what he thinks. Maybe you will mature differently your projects or enterprise or your whatever the project. And actually, why? Because the perspective will be enlarged. And maybe his remark or his opinion and so on will allow you to see with enlarging your perspective and to mature your project and by enriching it. This is extremely important. And why this is important? Because this is much more deeper than this in surface. Concretely, we're in the modern times for which the media, the new civilization perceive the other, the foreigners and so on, in general, like, let's say, a threat, like a competition, like, a potential enemy. This is a matter of fact. Whatever the country, the Western civilization is really oriented like this. But originally, most of the tradition among the world are different. In Arabic, it is said baraka. Baraka means blessing. Why? Because this is perceived as the other is bringing news, new perspective from another city, another country, and so on. And actually, we find this in all the culture for Christians, for Buddhists, for Hindu, and so on. And this is interesting because in a kind of new era, it's interesting to perceive people as a collaboration, as hands, as a way to enrich yourself instead of competition, threat, enemies, and so on. You see? So this is not innocent remark. So this allows us to be more peaceful with the notion of the absolute, because every component has a reason for being. Okay, it's like an ecosystem. The ecosystem in nature shows that every single element is important, like in your watch, like in every types of electronic device. Okay, so this is extremely important. Duality is not an opposition, is a complementarity, okay? This is like negative, positive, the different energy for your battery. You don't prefer negative or positive. A negative is not devil. It is just a charge. It is just a force, okay? So concretely, it is like in Taoism, it is the notion of Tao, okay, is a wall. Okay, and most of people knows the symbol of yin yang. Yin is feminine. It is a certain polarity, and masculine is yang. Okay, so it's not an opposition, it's a complementarity. Without that, if it's unified, if it's, let's say, neutralized, concretely, there is no dynamic. And normally, we don't have to perceive Taoism and the yin and the yang like fixed. It is in rotation. It is rotating because it's like, you know, creating a certain dynamic, okay? The Tao is the wall, okay? If you talk about the Tao, you're out of the Tao, okay? It is exactly what I said before, is the painting, the painter together as a block. This is interesting, for which we are part of it, for which we are a component like the electronic device would be the Tao. Yin-yang, Ida, Pingala for Hinduism or Buddhism and so on. Actually, all the culture has this. But once again, it's not an opposition like a war, not at all. It's just a complementarity. And, you know, it's like, if we want to be a little bit like a nonsense, like with a certain humor, it's like if I ask you, what do you prefer regarding breathing? You prefer inhaling or exhaling? Okay, it has no sense, right? So do you prefer your mother or your father? Okay, maybe effectively you have a difference. But if we ask your child, normally you cannot reply if you have to, okay? So it's the same concept. What do you prefer? Do you prefer light or darkness? Both are useful. Without darkness, you don't have light, because if light is everywhere, you cannot see it. You need a support to put in relief things. The valley is important for the mountain, and so on. So, and by the way, all this is physics. As soon as you have a vector, a force, you necessarily a reaction force, okay, to compensate, to balance, but also to create a dynamism. Okay, if you see, for example, the sea current, okay, hot and cold in the ocean, it creates a kind of dynamism, creating, okay, tornado for the extreme, but also the climates, the seasons, and the fact that nature is able to live and to give food without these currents. If they are, let's say, neutralized, like in a lake with lukewarm water, it wouldn't be possible to be on this planet, because life wouldn't be possible. So, concretely, the duality is essential, is a blessing, is not an opposition necessarily. It is essential to think like this. Actually, globally speaking, holistic dimension, and this is a concept I rebaptize holy style of life, holy with a Y, why? Because it's a symbol of the Holy Grail and also of the funnel method. Why? Because it's a double funnel. What does it mean? Holistic, you start from the whole and you focus with more components, with more criterion, with more, let's say, items, okay? And you start from the absolute, the big whole, till a focus point of singularity. And then from the single point of singularity, you could enlarge your perspective to the absolute. This is the approach, okay? So this is important, for example, to see football, okay? Football can be the subset, I mean, it's always belonging to a wall, okay? The wall would be sport. A larger perspective would be entertainment, okay? And if you take football, it can be outdoor, indoor, feminine, masculine, professional, amateur, and so on and so forth, okay? So you can always split from one side to another. And this is interesting to apply this type of, let's say, pattern in your daily life, because it's, at the end, enlarge your perspective. And the more you do that, the more you are closer to the notion of unity. Okay? So, well, if I had to resume concretely, the knowledge and the understanding of duality leads to holistic vision remaining a keystone of existence, because you understood that existence means separate. We have been separated, and the objective is to find back this unity within yourself and then through the rest, the other people from which we are part of it. We are just a fragment of it. This is really important. Well, I invite you as a practice to do the following, to try to analyze in general in your everyday life things belonging to a whole first. And also each element, each idea, to see the contrary and to see how it is compensates, and if there is no third part or third element, fourth element, and so on. Okay, to enlarge always your perspective. And this will, the goal is that you apply more and more this notion of holistic dimension. Well, I really invite you to sleep on it, to meditate on this video passively, actively, intuitively, and also to watch it several times, maybe to take notes, to share with friends and so on. Also to see the perspective and to share, because the more you share with people, the more you enlarge your perspective and you reduce the notion of duality and you expand your consciousness, or you, let's say, reach back the unity that you had. So this is important to visualize that. I invite you also to reformulate, to rephrase, to summarize, to feedback to other people to see, because the transmission for me is the peak of mastering a certain type of knowledge. And I really invite you to see this information and to explore more with other videos, other books, and so on, and also to see how practically it is in your daily life. Well, this is only one key, and because what is really important is to understand there is many keys, because the more we will see keys and the more you will shape your own master key, which is personal. All the roads lead to Rome and to home. Actually, it's really up to you to open up the doors that you want or not towards the consciousness and on this infinite inner journey. Well, it is really up to you, up to YOUnity. Well, a word to wise. Thank you for your attention and see you later.